relax. And your knees are going to be, feet and knees are just going to be underneath you. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick this on so I can see everybody. Okay. Okay, so everybody can see me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're just going to start off with your arms out to the side in a T. And you can take your feet a little bit wider than hips width. It could even be the width of your mat. We're just going to do a quick little stretch to the side. So you're just going to sway your knees either right or left, does not even matter. You can take your head in the opposite direction. And just make sure that the shoulder, the opposite shoulder from the direction that your knees are swaying, is staying nicely rooted into the mat. And really let that leg that's closest to the floor, let that hip really relax and open. Try not to hold on to any tension. Just breathe there for a moment. See if you can feel that nice, we call it diaphragmatic breath, where the lungs and the rib cage are expanding laterally. Inhale as you bring your legs back into center line, and exhale as you go the opposite way, whatever that direction is for you. And inhale back to the center. And this time, going back to the first side, go ahead and cross a leg over. So I'm going to cross my left leg over. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to sway again. This time I'm going to the right. My left leg is crossed over. I'm getting a little bit of an extra stretch in my low back because my left leg is actually weighting down the right leg, causing a little bit more of a twist. I'm going to inhale back into the center and uncross my left leg. It might have been your right. I'm going to take my opposite leg, which is my right leg, and I'm going to sway the other way. And I'm still trying to keep my opposite shoulder down, which is my right shoulder, because I'm going left. And then I'm going to inhale and I'm going to bring myself back in. I'm going to take my arms down by my side for just a second. I'm going to bring my heels underneath me. Now I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to interlace them behind my head. And I'm going to bring my elbows forward. And I don't actually want you to lift your head. I just want your elbows forward. I do want you to try to imprint your low back. So therefore, no space between your low back and your mat. I just want you to lift your right leg up off the floor and then your left leg up off the floor. And so you're giving your neck a little bit of length, and your low back again is imprinted, and we're going to flex our heels, feet, toes back to the shin, and we're going to reach our right leg down to the floor, a nice long lever, and we're going to inhale to bring that leg back up. We're just going to alternate legs here. So no letting the low back start to peel up off your mat. You want to keep some weight into the floor and feeling that back of the neck nice and long. And the longer you take that lever, which is your leg, the more you're going to feel that it's a little bit more challenging to imprint your back. Every single time I bring my leg back up, I finish with my knee on top of my hip. We'll just go for 4 more. And 3. So it can be quite challenging to not let that low back lift, too, especially if you're naturally loose in that area. And last one. Okay, now we can widen the elbows, but we're going to keep those legs exactly where you had them. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to lengthen the back of the neck, tuck the chin a little bit, and lift the head and shoulders. Hopefully the top of the shoulders are off the mat, maybe even the lower part of the shoulders. And I just kind of rock a little bit from side to side and see what that feels like. Maybe I can get a little bit more lift. And I'm going to hold that lift in my chest, and I'm going to go for those taps again. So of course I'm imprinted still because I've got my chest lifted. We're working those lower abdominal muscles, these deep, deep abdominal muscles, but we've added this upper ab area, this rectus abdominis. Keep the elbows wide. Let's just go for 4 more. and 2, and 1. And let's just hug the knees into the chest, and you can let your head come down. Just rock a little from side to side. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your right hand, place it over the front of your shin on your right leg. Okay. Take your left hand and place it over your right knee. Okay. So right hand, front of the right ankle, left hand, front of the knee. Extend your left leg, and let's lift that chest again. For me, I often will flex my heels. You honestly could point your toes if you want. The flexing of the heel here helps me to feel a little bit more length through the front of the hip, and I tend to get a little bogged down in my hip flexor, so that's something that I like to do, but you don't have to. Okay, so now we're just going to hold this for a moment, and we're going to feel no tension in the neck, but we are going to really try to lift the chest, and the more you lift your chest, the less you feel that neck tightness, right? And now we're going to switch. And I want you to take your left hand to the ankle and your right hand to the knee. And I'm really trying to get length out of this bottom right leg. This is called a single leg stretch. Now we're going to add a little bit of speed to this, and we're going to exhale every time we stretch and the leg forward. So we're going to go out. You could always put your head down if you had to. How much can you push through your heel, and how much can you lengthen through the front of the hip without letting that chest drop if your head is still lifted? Let's take it for 4 and 2. And let's just hug the knees in, and let's bring that head down again and let our neck rest. Now I'm going to take those hands behind my head again with my elbows wide. I'm going to lengthen the back of the neck. I'm going to lift the chest again. Now I'm going to rotate my left shoulder to my right knee first, just that. And then bring my head and chest down. I'm going to lift, and I'm going to rotate the opposite direction. So can you really get that rotation in the trunk where you feel both shoulders are off the floor, coming down in between each one? Right, there's no rotation happening in your pelvis. All the rotation is happening in your upper thoracic spine. It's not happening in your neck, except your neck kind of goes along for the ride. Now what if we add our legs, but we don't put our head down in between? So we extend the left, and then we extend the right, and then the left, and then the right, and we push the air out. And 4, and hug your knees in. Let's go ahead and place those feet back down on the mat. And maybe just a little swaying from left to right. All right, so now's the time we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn around, and we're going to go to our all fours position. So how we started on Wednesday. Okay. So I've got my shoulders pressing down my back, and I hope that makes sense to you, because shoulders pressing down the back, when I talk about shoulders, I don't talk about the top of my shoulders, right? This isn't what we're referring to. We're referring to this part of your back. It's the shoulder blades. They create a V, right? And when you've got those lats and those lower trapezius muscles, and these little muscles in here called your serratus anterior and your serratus posterior, they create this beautiful V, and they take all this tension out of your neck and out of your upper traps, and it's where all of your movements from your arms are coming from, right? And it's just everything, your rotation, all your pulling, everything is coming from here. These arms aren't just swinging appendages, right? That's not what they are. They could be, but the real strength of your arms ultimately comes from your back. So shoulders down your back is what I'm referring to. But when I'm referring to that, I'm referring to all these muscles in your back. Okay. So shoulders down the back, right? Now I'm just going to have you extend the right arm forward. And then bring it back in. And when I extend my arm forward, by the way, I do have my palm of my hand facing my center, so my thumb's on top. Left arm comes forward. And so, as I extend that arm forward, the whatever arm is reaching, still pressing down into the ground, is my supporting side. That shoulder is reaching down towards my hips. Kind of slipping into my back pocket if I had a back pocket. And then what if I wanted to take that into a little circle, you know, in ballet, with our leg, we would call it like a rond de jambe, right? It's kind of like a rond de jambe of your arm, a little circle of your arm. So we would go circle front, circle side, circle back, bring it down. Then we could take that in reverse. We could reach the arm back to the side, to the front. And now we would start with the other arm. Reach it front, open side, take it back and down. Reach it back, open side, bring it front. Now we start, just keep repeating that. So we go front and side and back. How long can you make the arm? The arm is long, just like your leg is long. 1. The shoulder joint is rotating in its socket. I'll just do one more. Front and side and back and down. We reach it back and side and front and down. Okay, so that kind of got those shoulders to move a little bit. But now what if we wanted to flex that shoulder joint? The shoulders aren't always down in life, meaning they're not always pressing down the back. Sometimes the shoulder joint will round or protract. So that would look like this if you can see me. I open my shoulder joint and I close it. And I open it and I close it. So as I open and close just my shoulder joint, I'm really trying to keep it out of my lower back. I'm isolating one joint from another joint. How I try to make this happen is I think about, well, maybe if I thought of my elbows sort of rotating away from my center line. Maybe I put a little bit more weight into my little finger. So just do 4 more. And just feel those shoulder joints widening and just dropping back into neutral. And widening and dropping back into neutral. And 2 more, widening and dropping back into neutral. And widening and dropping back into neutral. Good, and you can just kind of get off your hands for a second, maybe just sit on your knees. Just kind of look at me for a second. So that, if you look at me from the side, what I just did, if my arms were out to the side, I just did this. That's what I was doing. I was doing that on all 4s without disturbing my pelvis, right? Well, what if we were on our stomachs, which we're going to go to, and we just wanted to extend the spine? This is extending the spine, right? Which we don't have to disrupt our low back to extend the spine. All right, so down onto your tummies. So place your hands and your forearms just underneath your shoulder joint. Okay, so my elbows are under my shoulders, so they're not out here in front of me. They're not all the way back here next to my rib cage. My elbows are under my shoulder joint. And I'm going to put a little bit more pressure into my elbow, and I'm going to just extend that shoulder and that thoracic spine and that neck. And then I'm going to relax it. So I get a little bit more height, little bit more length in my spine. It's a super tiny movement. I do need to think about my core. I do want to think of, in Pilates, we call it navel to spine. We want to think of drawing the belly button in and trying to connect it to our spinal column. There was a colleague of mine once said that you imagine that you have a blueberry in your belly button and you don't want that blueberry to get squashed, right? So we really want to feel light under our belly button. So there's our thoracic extension that doesn't affect our low backs. And now we're going to go ahead and take ourselves all the way down to our stomach. So we're prone, we're totally prone. And our arms are going to be out in front of us, okay? Now when your arms are out in front of you, you cannot have your shoulders down your back. Your shoulders are already flexed, okay? So don't try to do that. You will feel a little bit of the upper track working. You will feel a little bit of the neck working. But we're going to add that thoracic extension. As I lift my left arm only, I'm going to get a little bit of an extension in my spine. And down. And I just want to do that 3 more times. I just want to feel that left side. Now, hopefully, just because you're lifting that left arm, you still have weight in your right hip. And your belly button is lifted and connecting to your spine. We have 1 more. My thumb is on top. We're going to do 4 to the right. And 3. And 2. And 1. Let's do that again. 4 to the left and 4 to the right. I just want to watch and make sure that you're not leading with your head or initiating the lift with your head. 4 with the right, left, and 4 with the right. A little bit too much head, Ella. More back, less head. So tuck the nose and the chin in. Yeah, better. Make sure you switch to the other side after you've done 4. Okay. And then take a little break, just like wiggle your bum, wiggle your hips out, because maybe your low back got a little bit tired from that. Maybe it didn't, but maybe it did. Okay, so just wiggle it out a little bit. So now we're going to add an opposite leg. So we're going to start with the left leg. We're going to lift that left leg and bring it down. Now I do point my toes because I feel like that gives me more length. So I want to lengthen my hip, my quadricep. Of course, I'm using my hamstring. I'm pointing those toes. I'm creating the longest line I possibly can, but both my hip bones are pressed into the floor and I lower it. Now I'm going to add my right arm to that. So I'm going to lift my chest, but I'm not going to take my forehead and look up. I'm not going to break my neckline. So I'm going to lengthen my neck and I'm going to lift everything and down. We're going to do that 3 more times. Lift and down. By the way, my left arm is on the ground. I'm using my right arm and my left leg. And let's switch to the other side. Thumbs are on top. You can press into the floor with your right arm if you're lifting your left arm. Extend the front of that right hip and feel that stretch all the way through the knee. The quads are slightly contracted. 1 more. Now lift the right arm and the left leg and hover, right? And now stay hovering and switch, and switch, and switch, and switch. 4 more at this pace. Switch, and switch, and switch. Now pick up the pace. You're going. And 1. Look, we call it swimming. Very, very fast little flutters. Now get as fast a flutter as you can do. As fast a flutter. Opposite arm, opposite leg. Using those hamstrings, using those tight quads to lengthen your leg. Keeping both hips equally weighted on the floor. Opposite arm, opposite leg. You're still in your hover. Going again for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Flex your toes. Let's come back to our knees. Open your knees and let's take a child's pose. Okay, take a little break and let's swing yourself around to face me. We're going to be on your knees just for a second, seated. We're going to do a little kneeling side leg kick, okay? So the kneeling side leg kick is going to be working your shoulder support, both sides, your oblique abdominis muscles, and your hips, a lot of hips. So the best way to get into that is to come up a little bit and then take your right hand and just lean into the right side. And as you do that, you'll pop your left leg out. Hopefully I'm still in the camera. Now, remember I said shoulder, okay? Your shoulder isn't relaxed under here, under this. This is the serratus and the lat. You want to feel, if you poked it with your left hand, that it feels a little bit tight. And I'm sure all yours do because you're amazingly strong. But you want that muscle to be fired here. My hand is under my shoulder. My other hand is going to go behind my head. Now I'm lifting my left leg. I'm a little bit turned in on that left leg. I'm not turned out, right? My toes are pointed. I'm going to flex my left heel and reach my leg forward and back. Now I'm going to add a little pulse. I'm going to pulse 2 times and pulse 2 times back. Pulse 2 times forward, pulse 2 times back. Forward and back. Now you can look down at your hand or you can look forward towards me. Forward, back. Forward, back. Forward, back. Forward, back. Now bring that leg back into the sideline position. We're going to lift it a little higher and tap it front. Lift it a little higher and tap it back. Lift it a little higher and tap it front. Lift it a little higher, tap it back. That's the movement. Lift, tap forward. Lift, tap back. Lift, tap forward. Lift, tap back. 2 more. Lift, tap forward. Lift, tap back. Now lift again and hold, and little circles for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep going, reverse. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're done. Come back down to your knees. Sit back down, shake it out a little. We're going to side 2. If you saw me from the side instead of the front, on the side legs, the kneeling, sometimes in my classes what I'll see, people will get their butts back like this. You see how I've got this big break in my hip, right? That's not ideal. We really want a stretch in the front of the hip here throughout the exercise. That's the ideal position to be in. Preferably not sitting back towards your heel, okay? Side 2, start up on your knees. Left hand dives into the side. Right leg goes out, hand behind your head. Lift that leg, flex the heel. We go forward, 2 little chugs with the heel and 2 back. Knit the front of the ribs together. As you take the leg to the back, try not to overly extend the lumbar spine. You keep going. Extending the lumbar spine would look like dropping the tummy forward and arching the back. Go for 2 more sets. And last set with the heel chug. And bringing that leg to the side and pause. Now we point the toes and we lift a little higher and we tap front. We lift through second position and we tap back into like a tendu back. Lift and tap, lift and tap, lift and tap, lift and tap. Keep it going. Don't forget that left shoulder is supporting you. And lift and tap and lift and tap and lift and tap and lift and tap and lift and tap, finish off to the back, and then pause with that leg in second position for 8 little circles. We go 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Careful you don't get the elbow behind you. And reverse 8, 7, 6. Knit the front of the ribs. 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a break. Let's roll onto your back and do a little figure 4. Just roll onto your back. Take any leg you like. Cross that ankle in front of the knee. Thread your arms underneath the opposite leg and gently pull your leg towards you. And we'll switch to the other side. Whichever leg is crossed, we want to try to open that hip. So that knee wants to try to go as open or as much into a right angle as possible. And then we'll take a little break. Okay, so if you don't have, I think that everybody had either a stretchy band or a fit band. I'll get closer to the screen. Am I correct about that? That we either have, I've always called them TheraBands, but they're usually used for physical therapy if you've had an ankle injury or a shoulder injury. So if you have a TheraBand, you can tie it into a knot, a pretty small circle, or if you have one of these fit bands that are already one piece, that's what we're going to use. But we're going to slip it over our legs, above our knees. And if you have the TheraBand and you're making it small and you're tying it into a little knot, tie it around your legs first and then make it into a little knot, okay? Everybody's good? If you don't have one, it's okay. We will survive. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little bridging work with my fit band, okay? So the first thing I wanna do is I just want to do a little bit more medial glute work. So I've got my heels out under my hips. If your band is light, you may want to go a little wider with your feet, but you definitely don't want to be narrower than your hips. And I just want to open and close my legs. So I'm not in a bridge, I'm just opening and closing. Depending on the color of your band or the color of your TheraBand, or if you've got a tight fit band, you're just going to do you. So as we do this little movement, it's totally normal to roll to the outside of your foot. Don't worry about that. Now we'll just go for another 2. So now we're going to take our bridge. And remember, our bridge is going to go up with a little bit of an articulation. So we're going to remember that it begins with a pelvic tilt, which is just a flattening of the lower back. Then the pubic bone starts to move in the direction of the ribs, and vertebrae by vertebrae, we make our way to the top. And again, the closer your heels are to your sits bones, the more you're probably going to feel this in your hamstrings. So I'm up in my bridge. I've got the tops of my shoulders sitting heavily onto the mat and my triceps sitting heavily onto the mat. And I'm going to do that same movement with my band. Let's go for 3. I didn't count. And roll down. I'm not good at counting. Okay, now I would like to just do one leg. So we're going to roll up into the bridge again. And now only open your right leg and really know that this is so much about your left side. So as we open just that right leg, try not to disturb your pillar, which is your left side. Just opening and closing that right leg. And if you didn't have a band, this would still be a great exercise. 4 more. And 3. And 2. And 1. Stay up there, maybe get a little bit more height. And let's open and close the opposite leg, the left leg. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and roll it down. Take a little breather. You could knock your knees together, which relaxes the glutes. Okay. All right. Now, unknock those knees together and maybe make a little adjustment if you need to with your band. Bring your right knee into a tabletop position and really pull on your band. So really pull that right knee in towards you. You're gonna maybe feel quads working a heck of a lot, but trust me, you're also using your psoas, right? Your primary hip flexor, which we need to batma, to kick, right? We need that to tuck. We need that to trunk, flex our trunk. And we're gonna press our left heel into the floor and we're going to lift and lower. Don't worry about how high you go. It's really as much about how much you're pulling your right knee in towards you as you lift and lower. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stay up there and pulse at the top for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hopefully you felt that. Let's bring that left knee in and really pull that left knee in towards you. You have 2 level hips as you go up and down and lift. Your ASIS, these 2 hip bones, are level as they lift and lower. It's not one more than the other. And 4. And 3. I'm going up with a more flat back though, by the way. And I'm going to stay there and I'm going to push up, 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 up. We have 4, 3, 2, 1. Come on down. Slip that band out. Toss it off to the side and just open the knees. Little butterfly stretch, rock from side to side. Okay, so take your hands now. We're just going to get a little bit of adductor with a little bit more lower core. Take your hands and place them under your sacrum. Okay, bring your legs up. Right. And now we're going to go for that little bit of trunk flexion, but you wouldn't have to if you didn't want to. We're going to lower your legs comfortably. And then we're just going to do some scissors. So we're going to open, 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 open. We're crossing at the top of the thigh. You take your legs as low as you like. Open, 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 open. Doesn't have to be a big opening. And 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. Unhook those hands from underneath you and hug your knees in. And we did this on Wednesday. Now take the feet up towards the ceiling and find that V feet, Pilates V feet, or first position. Connect the heels and flex the hip joint and the knee joint. And then drive the heels up towards the ceiling, trying to knit the inner thighs together. And plie and stretch. And plie and stretch. I'm really trying to make imprints of my feet on the ceiling here. This is actually easier when you take your legs low. And we go for 4, and 3, and 2, and 1, and tuck that tail up, interlace the fingers or hands underneath your sacrum again, lift the head and shoulders, lower the legs down to about 45 degrees, and another set of scissors. 1, 2, maybe faster. 4, And 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 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 and 1, 2. Last 4. And hug in. Hands down by your side. Feet come up. V feet. And another set of 12 little plies. And 10. Bring those inner thighs together. 9. Make imprints on your ceiling with your feet. And 7. And 6. And 5. And 4. And 3. And 2. And 1. Now bring your legs into parallel, point the toes, and have your hands down by your side. We're going into a little overhead or roll over, sometimes called rollover. Lots of weight into the triceps. You can watch one first. I don't want my feet to be lower than the rest of me. So I'm just going to start to curl over. I'm going to shoot for being 2 parallel lines. Open my legs, flex my heels. Keep my heels flexed as I roll down. Ooh, I'm shaking. I love this exercise. And then I bring my legs back together. So it's done with control. Scoot down just a little bit. So I start with the rollover, very controlled abdominals. Open and flex. Keep the heels flexed as you roll down. I'm pulling my toes back to my shin. It's a slow roll. Bring the feet back together. And repeat that. I'm going to take a peek, make sure it makes sense. So we don't want the toes to end up on the ground. We want your legs parallel to the floor. And then we really want to pull the toes back as you roll down, hopefully not having that last little like clunk at the very end, right? Where you almost make it down and then all of a sudden you don't quite make it without going thump. Now, if you want to make it harder, what you do is you don't start at 90, you start at about 45 degrees with your legs, so a little bit more abdominal. That's beautiful. That's good, Anita. Yeah, so Anita added like a little leg circle as she came out of the roll down. That's another variation on this. One more. And then you can just hug those knees into the chest. It's a really nice little spine stretch and leg stretch. So I always find that I do that towards the end of my workouts. It's a nice relaxing way to kind of loosen up the back and loosen up the hamstrings after a hard workout. So kind of a nice thing to do. Did it feel good? Yeah? Good. Excellent. Let's take a little bit of an isometric hamstring stretch next, because that exercise kind of led us into a nice little isometric hamstring stretch. So you guys probably already know what that means, but I'll just run you through it again. You can have your bottom leg bent or straight, but if you take your hands behind your calf, I would say most of you are definitely going to be behind your calf. And I'm just going to show it with my right leg. You can start on any leg you like. And I'm going to not start where my stretch is, right? I'm going to start somewhere really easy where it doesn't feel like I have much of a stretch. And for that, you may even want to be under your thigh, behind your leg, behind your thigh, okay? And I'm going to push into my hands with my hamstring. I'm going to hold that about 5 seconds. And then I'm going to relax. And I'm just going to pull with my arms, my leg a little bit towards me. So now I've got a different place that I'm starting from. I'm going to push into my hands again, about 5 seconds. And then I'm going to pull a little bit with my arms from there. Now my leg is getting closer to me. I can walk my hands up to my calf. And I'm going to push into my hands. And then I'm going to pull with my arms. So what we're doing is we're tricking our bodies a little bit into getting more stretch. And whenever you feel like you've maxed out on your stretch, then that's where you stop. That's where you hold. At that point, I would extend my bottom leg and maybe lift my head and shoulders and just go for the stretch. Oh my God, I need to do this more often. And hug the knee into the chest when you're done. Okay, let's try the other side.
Sharon, I have a question.
Yes.
When I do it like on my left side, for example, like I can stretch a lot more with my hamstring, but it starts to pinch in the front of my hip. So what do you, like, it makes me want to pull it out, but I know I shouldn't go on the outside, like to stay square.
Is it like up, is it the hip or is it like the top of the thigh?
Top
of the thigh?
Right there.
Yeah, yeah. So that's your TFL. So that's one of your abductors that's starting to kick in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, does it make a difference if your bottom leg is bent?
A little bit, yeah, but it's still there.
Yeah, so you probably would be better off maybe actually putting a little something under your low back.
Okay.
Just a little something under your low back, like a towel or something. Just something to kind of take some of the extension out of your lumbar spine.
Okay.
And see if that makes a difference. Because I know you want to turn out when that happens, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah, so taking a little bit of the extension out of your lower back will stop you from grabbing with your TFL. Okay. That's your tensor fascia lata that's cramping up on you.
Okay.
Yeah. So finish off with your second leg. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a spare leg? I always thought that. We'll do a little stretch for that TFL, Anita. When you're done with this hamstring stretch, we can all sit up and face forward or wherever. So it's a really hard, that's one of the hardest muscles to stretch. You can stretch it with a foam roller, but honestly, it's tough to stretch. And the bigger question probably is like, why is it so jacked up in the first place? And I think that, you know, if we're working our glutes and our glutes and our quads a lot, it tends to just get way overworked. And so it's not that something is weak, it's just that it needs a lot of attention when it comes to stretching and rolling and massage and that whole business. But if you put your left leg behind you and you put your right leg in front of you, we call it like the Z sit. A really nice way to stretch that is to take your hands behind you. I'm going to show it from the side. Is to take your hands behind you and then think of really pushing that back hip, that back leg, that's the left hip for me, forward, and then pull it back, and then push it forward, and then pull it back. And some people are loose enough that they get all the way back to their elbows. Some people are so loose that they lay all the way down onto their backs. I was probably 10 the last time I laid all the way down on my back doing this. But if you even just hang out on your elbows here, you're getting a really great stretch for that TFL, which is this. Are you feeling that, Anita? Yeah?
Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I feel it.
Yep. Now we do have to be a little mindful of the low back in this stretch. Sometimes the this little SI joint can get a bit tweaked because we're kind of compressing it a little bit. So we do have to, like every stretch, we still have to think about lifting and engaging our core muscles, but you can definitely hold this for quite a while and it's a safe stretch. So let's try the other side. So tuck that other leg behind you. One side will be usually much easier than the other. So you can start upright and then you can go into it. And then we'll finish off with a little side bend, which will also be a nice hip stretch for you guys. All right, so give yourself about 10 more seconds, and then let's come out of that, and we'll come to your knees. And we'll just do a little side bend. So you want to be, when you're kneeling, you want to be at least hips width, maybe just a pinch wider is kind of nice, right? I always say it's not like that nice ladylike, we're not at church praying, right? We're a little bit wider than that. And then we're going to take our right hand to the floor, and we're going to take that left leg out again, and we're just going to kind of open up the chest and then close it. And open and close. So I said, maybe remember earlier on, I said, don't open up your chest, don't open up your ribs. Well, you're allowed to here, because this is just a stretch. Open and close, and open and close. And then bring it back in. You can bring both knees together here, separate them before you start side two. Pop that leg out, put the left arm in, and open and close. And open. And I've got a really long arm that's pointing up to the ceiling. It's not loose like an overcooked spaghetti noodle. It's like a noodle that hasn't been cooked yet. It's nice and tight and crisp. And let's go for 3 more. And 2. And last one. And then bring that knee in. And then this time, just go ahead and walk your right foot forward for a little lunge. Make sure everybody's got padding under their left knee. And it's okay for your right knee to go a little bit forward of the middle of the foot here, this medial malleolus, right? It's okay. You can take that leg a little bit more forward. And let's just open the chest. Put the 2 hands on top of the knee. Put the shoulders down. And let's get a nice stretch here. Take your right hand to the floor and a little side bend. And a little circling to the front. And bring that leg back. Left leg forward. 2 hands to the knee. Shoulders down the back. Get a little bit more weight through that front leg. Drop into that back hip. And come out of it a little bit as you take your left hand to the floor. You don't want to be in much of a lunge here. You want to back out of that lunge by about 50% and just a little side stretch. And then now just pull back in that left heel and toe and sit back. Bring that leg around. Reach the right leg forward, sit back in that left hip, pull those right toes back. And we are done.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a lovely rest of your day and weekend.
Gracias. Thank you.
Yeah, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.
Let me know if you guys need anything more, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, bye. Take care all.
Same for you.